So we've talked about how you got the idea of a girl detective in ancient Rome, but what was ancient Rome really like? Some people might not know who the Romans were or where they lived.
Well, let's talk about where and when. First of all, they lived about 2,000 years ago, a few centuries either side the birth of Jesus Christ, from which, of course, we count our year. We're 2021 years after Jesus was born.
Jesus was alive at the same time as Flavia.
Well, not exactly, but if he hadn't been crucified around the year AD 30, he would still have been alive and an old man when Vesuvius erupted in AD 79 years after his birth.
But Jesus lived in Israel, and that's quite a way, isn't it?
Good point. But the Romans were in Israel as an occupying force. Their armies were everywhere. That's why it's called the Roman Empire. But of course, their capital city was Rome in Italy, which is why we call them the Romans.
So tell us more about the Romans.
There are a lot of things they didn't know about that we know about. And one of the things that really struck me is they didn't know about germs, bacteria, and viruses. They thought that evil spirits and angry gods caused plagues and sickness. And that's why they sacrificed animals so much. You know,
they
killed animals on an altar, a block of usually stone dedicated to a god or a spirit. And they also had lots of superstitious practices, things to keep away evil.
Now, one of my favourite things in the Thieves of Ostia is the clothes they wear, because one of the boys, I'm not going to ruin it, gets turned upside down in his T-shirts. Because that's what they sort of wore. They wore these sort of T-shirts, didn't they?
People talk about tunics and togas. Now, the tunic is the big T-shirt thing, like you might wear a nightshirt when you go to bed. And boys had tunics that came down to about their knees, a bit higher, a bit lower, sometimes with a belt. Girls' tunics were a bit longer, all the way down to their ankles. They didn't have shoes or trainers, obviously, so they had sandals. They didn't have jackets, so they had a toga, which is like the blanket thing. And they didn't have scarves. Well, they did have scarves. They called them palla, and women mainly wore them. You could cover your head with them.
So what did they eat? What did the Romans eat? Did they have hamburgers and things like that?
Well, no, actually, they and stuffed dormice is. They could have had a thing like a hamburger if you had a little.
Dormice.
Yeah, stuffed dormice is a great exaggeration. Very few Romans actually ate exotic food like stuffed dormice and stuffed cow's udders. Ew.
That doesn't sound nice.
They mainly ate porridge, bread, olive oil, cheese, seasonal fruits and vegetables. They actually had quite a healthy diet. No sugar, a little bit of honey sometimes, or dates or figs. And they ate fish, but very little meat. We eat meat with almost every meal. They ate very little meat. They didn't drink just water. They always put wine in their water, even children.
You got to drink
even
wine
children,
when you were a kid.
Little teeny bit of wine will kill all the bacteria and germs. They didn't know that. They only knew a little bit of wine made your water safe. And you can also use vinegar, put a little bit of vinegar in your water. That's what the Roman legionaries drank. It's quite refreshing.
Yeah, that doesn't sound nice though. So hang on, if you're a Roman kid, you get to drink wine. Do you have to go to school?
If you were rich, your parents were rich and you were a boy, you sometimes went to school in the forum, which was just like a tutor with some other boys in a public space in a columned walkway. But if you were really lucky, you had a tutor who came to your home. And of course, girls hardly ever got taught anything except how to spin wool and weave wool into clothes, because you had to make your own clothes in those days. They were very expensive to buy.
Well, here's an activity that we can all do at home. Imagine being a Roman. Write a short description of eating a Roman meal, or visiting the baths, or even going to the toilet. Write a short paragraph and imagine what life was like back then.